Okay, we're up to Chaf Aleph Amid Beis, a good narrative Yontif to everybody. Sman Simcha Seinu, everyone should be Zeicha to sit and be nene mitzel dem nusa, ziv the Shechina, to fulfill the Shechina in the Sukkah. And Bes Hashem, next year we shall be Zeicha to sit in the Sukkah, the Sukkah of the V'yasin. Okay, Gufa. Amar Yosi Rabbi Chana. Now this Gufa is a faraway Gufa. Usually Gufa is pretty close by, meaning that previously we brought in as a kasha or a proof, and now Gufa, we're going to analyze it, Gufa for itself. We're going to analyze it for itself, right? Exactly what it means. Now this Gufa took us back a little while ago. Amar Yosi Rabbi Chanina, Kol Kiyar she'ein boy kidei lekadesh arba kahanim, any kiyar that does not contain enough water for kiddush of 4 kahanim, mimenu, ein mekachim boy. You can't go ahead and use it. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, berachatzu mimenu, Moshe, Aaron, that's 2. Ubanov is 4, is 2 more. As Yedehem, as Ragleim. So we brought this in previously, and now we're going to analyze it. The water of the kiyar. The subject of today's shir is the water of the kiyar. So you need a total of what of water enough for 4 people. Okay, that's the Rabbi Yosef Chanina's memra. Meisivei kol kalim mikachim, any kalim, all kalim that mekadesh water that they should be roy for kiddush yadayim raglayim, right? Ben sheyesh behem revias haloik, whether there is a quarter of a leg in there, uben shein by revias haloik, ubavad sheyeh klishares. In other words, I need the water to be kodesh in order to go ahead and use for kiddush yadayim raglayim. And we're saying whether even less than a revius would work. And you're telling me you need for 4 people. You're telling me what you need for 4 people. So Ravada Baracha says Ravada Baracha. It's speaking Bekir Atzmai, but it says the kiyar itself, right? You need the share for 4 people. When the Brisa says that you could go ahead and less than a revius is b'kodeach, when you go ahead and you drill a hole b'soichai into the kiyar, you're drilling a hole, and now you have that hole holds an X amount of water. The water coming out is X amount of water. That X amount of water could be what? Could be less than a revius. That less amount of water that it's coming out could be what? Less than a revius. So therefore now the memra is set. Okay. Amar of Ada. Okay. Menu Amrachmana. Right? Menu is mashma from it. It has to be from the kiyar itself, not from some kind of extension to the kiyar. But menu, it says it has to be what from it, right? And if you go, it's speaking. If you're going to have to go ahead and daf gets mashed from the kiyar, but not from what from the extension of the kiyar. Again, you're using an extension from the kiyar. You need menu from it, from the kiyar itself, and not from an extension. On that, the Gemara says, right? Yerchotzu. The pasuk says, "Vasisa kir nechoishes v'kana nechoishes l'rochtza v'nasata yisoy ben oil mayed ben mizbeach v'nasata shama mayim." So it says over there l'rochtza, and the next pasuk says, no, that's a different thing. Okay, so you have over here, it's mashma that what the yerchatzu is going to go ahead and be a ribui. It's going to be a ribui. Okay, so now the pasuk I was looking for is it says v'rachzu mimenu Moshe v'Aaron ubanav. We did that already, right, guys? V'rachzu mimenu Moshe v'Aaron. In the very next pasuk, Lamed Beis, it says b'voyim el oil moyed u'bikarvasam el hamizbeach yerchatzu. So the second yerchatzu is extraneous. You already said the pasuk before v'rachza. So the second yerchatzu is extra. Since it's extra, it comes l'rabois klishares that. Not only do you have to do kiddush yadayim raglayim from the kiyar, but in addition, you can use the klisharis. Comes to mind, we just did Masechta Yuma, that the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur would go ahead and use it sleiches. He would use a special kli. The whole year he would use the kiyar, and on Yom Kippur he used a special kli. And there was, I think it was Rabbi Yehuda who said he used that special kli the whole year. He didn't go ahead and do from the kiyar. So you see that you could be mekadesh using a kli shares, not just the kiyar. Why? Because it says yerchatzu ihachi. Once you're telling me you don't need the kiyar itself, kli chol nami. Guys, one, if you're telling me is the kiyar dafka for kiddush yadayim raglayim, I understand that and nothing else. But now you're telling me your chutzu is extra and it's coming to go ahead and be marba. So take it the whole 9 yards. Say even a kli chayil. Say even a kli chayil you could use. Why dafka a kli shares? Rabbi, klicholoi matzas amrit. You can't possibly say you can mekadesh yadayim with a klichol. Why? Mikal v'choimer mekanai. Kal v'choimer from the kan. The kan is the base of the kiyar. Now, if you ever look, fellas, at a kiddush cup, some are flat, and some have a base that what is kind of there's an empty space. It sits on it. If you would turn it over, you'd have a little, not much of an area, but there's a base kibble, right? There's a base kibble over there. So the kanai was such a mitzias that there was the base, right? And the kir sat on top of it. So the Gemara wants to know, can you go ahead, invert the kanai and use that for what? For kiddush yadayim v'raglayim. Okay? And we're going to say kal v'chomer from that if you can't use the kanai, there's no way you could use what? A kli chayil. So lematzas amrit. You want to tell me mimenu dafka the kiyar, and now you're telling me the kiyar is lav dafka. It's the kli sharis as well. Well, 1 second. Guess what? Okay. And you want to extend it to a kli chayil, and there's no way. And the limit is from the base. Lematzas amrit says you can't possibly say that. Uma kanai shenimshach imay. The kan, the base that was nimshach, it was anointed with the kiyar. Ein makadesh, it can't be makdesh what kiddush yadayim raglayim. Kli choil she'ein nimshach imay. Kli choil was not anointed with it. Ein din is not a kal v'chayim she'ein makadesh. The kan I mean no. How do you know you can't use the kan? The Tanya Rabbi Yudaimer yachal yekanai magdish. You might think the kanai could possibly be used as a kli to be magdish yadayim raglayim kiderach shakir magdish, just like the kir is Talmud loymar v'sisa kir nechayches v'kanai nechayches. Now this is l'chayra. This is an extra word. There's a repeat over here. We're going to see in a second. V'sisa kir nechayches v'kanai nechayches. The nechayches hikshaktiv. The only dimyan you have between the kir and the kan is the fact the material is bronze. For loyla davar acher, I said bronze, copper. For loyla davar acher, not for anything else. In other words, the kir einachinami, but the kan, which is similar in the chayshes, but nothing else. In other words, it can't be magdish. You have a kal v'chomer, you can't use a klichel. Yeah, Nasan, you have a kasha?
Yeah, how could we use the inverted part of the kanai if we just said if there's not enough water for 4 kahanim, you can't use it? That zichar doesn't have enough water.
Oh, but again, we said it has to, the kiyar has to have enough. But if you have a klishares, if you have, no, the kiyar has to hold that amount. The klishares that you're using to be magdish doesn't have to have that amount.
But the kiyar and the kanar was one chefza or 2 separate things?
It's 2 separate things. They're 2 separate things.
Oh, okay. It wasn't like a kiddush cup where at the bottom.
Yeah. No. I just gave you that dimyan.
Okay.
Or else what's mitzias? How could you use it to go ahead right in? Okay. Now it may be if you removed it, it could be that the area was over here where it's sat in. Also, it doesn't. In my mind, that was the base keyboard, but it doesn't make a difference. But if it's a klisharis, you could use it. Okay. The bottom line is there's no kal v'chomer klichol. You can't use it for kal v'chomer from the kanoi, and we know the kanoi you can't go ahead and use it because the dimyan to the kiyar was only in the material. It wasn't anything else. Let's see Rashi over here. Rashi's nice. Oh, Rashi's always nice, but shenim shachimai v'niskatche b'mishichasai, and it became a kodesh with its anointing. Kimaisai, just like the kiyar. Ain't a magdash yadayim reglayim. You can't be magdash yadayim reglayim from the kanai. L'nechayshes hikshaftis, says Rashi, loy be'akesha yelafla. It's not a hekesh. El klaimer, it's dimyon of l'kliya. It's similar to the kiyar. Liyash and l'chayshes, right? Hakan k'moya kiyar. That it should be the same, but it's not. You're learning it out of a hekesh because it says l'chayshes openly. V'loy l'davar acher. Now, why not? Why not? Lo yikshachti shneim b'pasuk echad lilmoid shad devarim. You can't go ahead and say that since they mentioned together, that you should learn out whatever the kiyar can do, the kanai can do. You mentioned the kiyar shenachayches, and then you mentioned kanai shenachayches. Why are you mentioning kanai shenachayches? If you have the hekesh, guys, Just write Kiyush on the Chayshes v'Kanoi, make the Hekesh, and you'll know that the Kan's of the Chayshes. Why do you repeat the Chayshes by the Kan? Shmamina, Lavlak Shinu Boy. The Ishkas the Chayshes, Nami, Nesa Bekesha. You wouldn't have to write it. You learn out of Hekesh that it's made out of Nechayshas. Ella Shmamina, when you repeated Nechayshas the second time by the Kan, the Maida Damya Pirish, the Behedya, well, the Maida Loy Pirish Le Damya. So you know it's guys, it's Geshmak. It's saying the following. It says Kir Nechayshas v'Kanish Nechayshas. If you wanted to say the Kan had the same din as the, it should say Kir Nechayshas v'Kanoi. Then you make the Hekesh, and whatever din applies there, you apply it over here. Why did you go ahead and say Kirsh and Nechayshis v'Kanish on Nechayshis to tell me the only dimyan is Nechayshis? Anything else, v'loyla davar acher, anything else, afilu what? Kiddushinayim reglayim not. It's beautiful. The Rashi, that's what I said. It's good to see the Rashi. He explains beautifully the fact that it's repeated is the one that teaches me what the davar acher. Amalei mazucha berei Rav Mari l'Ravina malakana shein asay l'saychay taima b'klichol she'asay l'saychay. You know what? We had a great limud, right? I got a big pircha. What's your pircha? A kli cheres, a kli choil is made as a receptacle. A kanoi is not made as a receptacle. So what's your kal v'choimer? Madach the kanoi, which was nimshach with the shemen hamishcha. You can't be magdish with it. Kli choil, which wasn't nimshach b'shemen hamishcha, ain't din. You can't be magdish with it. Ma'alakana, which wasn't made as a receptacle. Toima b'klichol, that's made as a receptacle. So maybe since it's made as a receptacle, you could in fact go ahead and use it. Ella mimenu. No, it's mimenu is lemuute klichol. Mimenu from the kiyar, and only the kiyar, but not a klichol. Mimenu from the kiyar, you can use it and nothing else. Guys, from the kiyar, it's a miyat. Only the kiyar could you magdash yadayim v'raglayim, but not a kli chayil. Fred the Gemara, the obvious question: Yihachi kli snami. If you're telling me mimenu, the only thing you can be magdash is the kiyar and not a kli chayil, why don't you tell me the kli sharis also? You can't be magdash using kli sharis either. It's out. If mimenu is a miyat, the only game in town is the kiyar. So how in the world could you go ahead and use a kli sharis? On that thing, what he answers, Harabi Rachmana Yerchatsu. We have a riboy. Now the Gemara says something strange now. The Gemara wants to know, given our druthers, why would you choose to be marba a kli kodesh rather than a kli chayil? It seems to be pashut, right? That you would think a kli kodesh makes more sense. Maroyis, that again, guys, look at me. I have a miyat of mimenu. The only thing you could use to be magdash is the kiyar. I have a riboy yerchatsu, and I can be marba something. I have a choice to be marba. I can be marba kli choil or I can be marba kli kodesh. I'm marba kli shares, right? Fred the Gemara, why'd you go in this direction, not this direction? Again, I don't understand. There's a sefer called Taras HaKodesh that Simcha had. I looked at it. I'm not sure exactly what but anyway.
Mimenu, it says in the Torah, the word mimenu?
Mimenu, yeah. That's the word it says by the kiyar. That's Lashon, it's Lashon of the Torah. Yerchatsu. Again, the Yerchatsu, Nassim, remember we said it twice. Rachza Yerchatsu. That's the right. Mimenu is the kiyar. Mimenu, only the kiyar. Now we say, but you have a ribo Yerchatsu, it's extra. Umaroy is to go ahead and include a kli shares and exclude a kli chayil. Zeh toy mashicha kamahu, v'zeh ein toy mashicha kamahu. Okay, that the kli shares requires anointing with oil similar to the kiyar, as opposed to kli chayil that doesn't. The Gemara now continues on a total digression of Kiddush Yadayim Raglayim, and now we're going to go ahead and include mikvois. This is where Masechta Zevachim meets Masechta Mikvois. Okay, guys, this is a total digression. Reish Lakish, Kol mashlim lemei mikvah, mashlim lemei kiyar. Any liquid that can go ahead and complete a mikvah can be mashlim the meikiyar. So what do we know? Guys, a mikvah needs 40 sa. The kiyar needs enough for 4 people. right? So anything that if you're caught short, you could use as a fill-in. In a mikvah, you could use as a fill-in one in the kiyar. That's the comparison. However, the revius from the tilas yadayim, the revius and tilas yadayim, ain't a mashlam. It can't be mashlam revius. So again, we know there's a din of shiurim, right? There's a shiurim, there's certain shiurim. So the Gemara in Sukkah tells us that what that shiurim is a lacham misinai, where we get it from. We don't get it from the pasuk right of with the fruits fruits of Eretz Yisrael. It's a lacham misinai. Okay, we know there's a mikvah's memsa. They figure out with a person. We know that the kiyah is for people, Moshe Aaron and Banov. We know from the Tilas Yadayim the shir is revius. If you're short of a mikvah, if you're short by the kiyar, whatever liquid is able to go ahead and complete the 40 saw, that same liquid will be able to complete what? The four men of the kiyar. However, that liquid will not be able to complete the revius of. And now the Gemara is going to go ahead and try to figure it out. Okay, that's the setup.
You say
That's
liquid, you mean any type of liquid?
not any type of liquid. No,
Whatever.
there's only certain liquids. Take a look at the Mishnah Mikvois.
Yeah. But saying those same liquids can
Whatever
be
those
used.
special liquids that could complete Memsah could complete 4 people. But that liquid that can complete those 2 cannot complete the Revius. That's the statement of Reish Lakish. That's the statement of Reish Lakish. Okay? Now, Lemuute Mai, what's it come to exclude? Ilema lemuute tit hanoruk. Now, tit hanoruk is like seems to be liquid cement. In other words, it's clay. It's liquid clay. Now, hechidami, what exactly is the status of this liquid clay? If a cow will bow its head and drink from it, afilu revius nami. In other words, we know regarding a mikvah that this clay, this liquid clay, whatever the viscosity of it is, it will complete a mikvah. It will complete the kiyar. It'll also complete the revius, and we need one that won't complete revius, right? The ain parah shaycha v'shaysim imenu, and if a parah will not drink it, afil mikvanami ein mashlim. So in other words, we're in our quest. What's that liquid that's good for mikvah and kiyar and not revius? Ella, guys, you're sitting. Lemuute yivchushin adumim. Red yivchushim. Says Rashi. Yavushim adumim. Kimin yitushim. They're like gnats. Beloy kenafayim. They don't have wings. Kiderech shegidel b'shulei chavius shel yayin. Shalanu. They grow in the bottom of our barrels of wine. Mibechutz. Yivchushim dakim. Afhein nevroyim min amayim. They are created from water. Red bugs that are created from water. Now, I'm learning with Simcha, and he says, Daddy, I was 19 years old. I was in the mikveh, and the guy says to me, what's that? He said he looked down, total red bugs in the bottom. Red bugs. They're spontaneous generation. They grow from a mikveh. Guys, since they grow from a mikveh, they have a din of water. Lenny, you're going to run with this. A din of water. Listen to this. The Gemara is going to say in a second, if you would be toivel in 40 saw of red bugs, tefillah zayla. Why? They have a din of water. They're created from water. It gets better, guys. It gets better. Says the Gemara. Now, so elalamut yevchushin adumim. That what? That these would be good for the mikvah. These would be good for the kiyar. They would be not good for the tilas yadayim. Guys, what was Reish Lakish's lashon? Mashlim. What does mashlim mean? God, what does mashlim mean? Meaning you're a quart short and you can fill in. Fred the Gemara, afilu beinayu nami. Even Rashi, guys, afilu beinayu nami. Im kol hamikvah nasa mehen. If the whole mikvah was made from these red bugs, kasha. Reish Lakish nakat lishna dahashlama. Reish Lakish just said you can fill it in. He didn't say you can use the whole thing. But if it's red bugs, you can use the whole thing. The Hatanya, guys, the Hatanya, Rav Shimon Gamliel Leimer, Kol shetchilase briyasa min amayim, anything that initially is created from water, matbilin boy, you can be toivel in it. V'amar Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdimi, matbilin be'enoi shel dag. Okay, let's get back to this in a second. Guys, let's get back to the second. So right now we're holding, we don't have a source for Kiyar mikvah yes, revius not. We don't have a source, right? If it's liquid clay, it's either they're all in or all out. And if it's red bugs, it can't be red bugs. Why? Because red bugs, the whole thing would work. And Rick Shlakish said the lashon of hashlama, to be mashlim. Says the Gemara. So what is the case? Amar Rev Papa, limuute nasan sa v'natal sa. Guys, you have a mikvah that's over 40. Guys, a mikvah that's over 40 sa. You put in May Paris and you take out water. You put in May Paris, you take out water. You will be able to do this as long as you don't up to Roiv. Up to Roiv, you'll be able to keep on doing this. You're putting in May Paris, you're putting in fruit juice, and you're taking it out. So in other words, I took out water, I put in May Paris, and vice versa. So that speaking with Nas and Saw, you put in a Saw, not al Saw. Harizeh Kasha. For Amr Rav Yehuda bar Shila, Amr Rav Asi, Amr Rav Yochanan, ad Rubai, until Rubai. Good? So that's the case. The case of, guys, would be, if you look at Rashi, there's a long Rashi over here, which I want to skip. The Rashi, Lamuti Nasan Nasan, go towards the end of Rashi. 3 lines where Rashi ends. You see the line ad Rubai, guys? You see ad Rubai in Rashi? Go up 3 lines. Udekavase ben atilas yadayim loy mishalme. If you go ahead and take in and put out, Shem Haisaba Revius Mayim. If you had a Revius Mayim, V'nasa minim halalu, and you put fruit juice in the Saichai, Roiva Revius, V'natal Kinegdom, and you take, let's say you take out a quarter of a quarter and you replace it, Psula, it's puzzle. The Loy Chashivi Shir Zutra, the Revius Levitlinu. The share of Revius is not enough to be Mavatal. So what happens, guys? Watch, look. You have the water of a mikvah and you have the water of the kiyar. If you put in fruit juice and you take out another one, the fruit juice is going to be, you have enough water to mavatal it. Good? Mashenkin, if by revius it's so small, if you're going to take out a quarter of the revius and put in a quarter of fruit juice, it's not mavatal. So that's the explanation of Reish Lakish, right? Said Reish Lakish, anything that's going to be machsha, a mikvah will work by mekiyar, but it won't work by what? By revius. It was speaking about nasan sa v'natal sa. Okay, now, along the way, we found this piece of information about red bugs, and let's just do a little bit of little interesting by this case of a dag. It says over here, Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdimi says, matbilin be'enoi shel dag. You can be toivel in the eyes of a dag. Says Rashi. Guys, look at Rashi. The enoi shel dag, the last thin line, dag gadol, a huge fish, shenimuk shuman enoi, that its eyeball melted, b'chayroi in its socket. Okay? Now, people look at this Gemara, so let's get the case. Let's get the case. It can't be you're in the water, because if you're in the water, you're not being toivel in the eye socket with the shuman, because the shuman is going to be mixed with water. Says the Chazon Ish, you know what we're speaking about? A huge fish that's on land, huge fish on land, the eyeball dissolved, and you're being toivel in the eyeball. Says the Chazon Ish, the halacha is, since the dag grows in water, the dag has a din in water, so you would toivel in a mikveh. The dag is water, guys. This is the raya. We're bringing back to the red bugs, right? Since fish grow in water, so says the Chazon Ish, this is on land. It's clearly on land. You're going ahead and being toivel in it. It's a liquid, and right, and the whole fish is considered water. Okay.
So you don't need 40 saw in the eye socket.
Again, if you have a big enough fish, that it's going to be more than 40 saw, the fish itself.
I understand, but where you're being toivel itself.
No, you consider you being toivel in the fish, right? Okay, I'm going to tell you something, guys. Rav Moshe has a tshuva. I think it's based upon this Gemara. I couldn't find it. I wasn't able. Rav Moshe, I didn't have a mafteach. I couldn't find it so good, but I think it's based upon this Gemara. There was a woman who was allergic to water. I don't know if she developed the allergy, but she had the allergy. She was married. She had to go to the mikveh. You, what do you do? But Moshe said, based upon this Gemara, I think, you see, a dog is considered water. Make a suit of fish skin for her, put it on her. It will not be considered a chatzitza. It'll be considered water. You hear? The ga'inus of Rav Moshe using this to matter a Bas Yisrael to be able to live with her husband. It's not to be Messiah, guys. Not to be not. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I think it's based upon this one. I don't. If it's not, it's not. But certainly the application, I can. I can. I know he has the tshuva, guys. That's for sure. That you can take to the bank. I couldn't find it. I think it's based upon this Gemara. I didn't research it more. So, but I think it's based upon this Gemara. But again, and you can see why, based upon again the dag is water, it grows in the water. So Mamela, it would not be a problem. So Moshe's tshuva, based upon this Gemara, the ability to go ahead and take a obscure Gemara that you're sitting there saying, "What are you talking about? Going in the eyes of a fish?" I think it's the goyness of Torah, guys. That sometimes people you laugh at stuff. I mean, we all know once upon a time there was a person in Cher's name who remained an infamy. He was the best. My Uncle Elliot was the best. Get out! Get out of here! What are you talking about? This is Gemara. This is the Gemara. This shows you if there's I'll say there's always something that you can extrapolate and figure out. It's just totally amazing. It's just totally amazing. Okay, I think it's based upon this Gemara. Okay, Baruch Hashem. Okay, v'amr Rav Yehuda bar Shila. Okay, Amra Papa. Im kodach ba revius. Now, if you have a mikvah and you make a hole in the mikvah, and there's a revius that comes out from the mikvah, matbilin by machdim mit. You can use it for, again, if you'd have a needle that was tamei. If you had they had a smith use the type of fork for gold. Right? That would be difficult to go ahead and be toivel without losing it. So what we had one Mishnah says you go ahead and put them on a shelf and you go ahead and hit the water and the water would go over it. You can go ahead and make a hole in the mikvah, and now it's if you have an area of revius, the mikvah asya, you could use it to be toivel. Now, what's the mitzias of the case? Rashi says something mind-boggling. Im kodach revius, says Rashi, b'doifin ha-mikvah, if you make a hole in the wall of the mikvah, b'hamayim nimshachim sham, and now the water will enter the hole, v'afal pi shenismatu hamayim, even though now the mikvah is mimiyot, you're taking out water from the mikvah, ve'ein mu'uravin mei ha-mikvah ba'oisa kedicha, and there's no mei mikvah mu'oriv in that hole. Rashi learns, fellas, that it's fashtupt. It's not pshat that you have a revius and it's connected to the mikveh. There's no chiddush there whatsoever. Rashi says, since this revius of water came from the mikveh, and now there's a barrier, it's not mu'oriv, it's still good. It's still good. That's what he says. Now, I don't know when a kelim mikveh is there 40 sa. So mistama, this is a kelim mikveh.
No, but there's hashaka in the kelim mikveh.
What do they do?
There's a hole leading to the bigger mikveh. The kelim mikveh itself does not have 40 sa.
I want to ask you a question. You go into Shop Smart. There's a kelim mikveh there. It's not connected to a mikveh.
That's true.
No. You go into Kitchen Click in the back there. They're not connected to a mikveh. Okay, I don't know. Again, I don't know. But again, the Rashi's chiddush is, fellas, that Rashi literally says, since that water came from a mikvah to be toivel, these small kalim in it, you could do it. Okay. Amrav Yemi Amreish Lakish. May mikvah ksherim lemay kiyar. May mikvah could be kosher for the kiyar. Now, the havim meaning of the Gemara is that for the kiyar, you're going to need mayim chayim. We know there's certain halachas, mayim chayim al keli. You need water from a spring. For example, le'inyan paraduma, le'inyan azov. They need mayim chayim. The havamina is, the Gemara assumes that may kiyar, you need mayim chayim, and therefore it lends itself to a problem, because by a mikvah you do not need mayim chayim. So if you're going to tell me that the water of a mikvah is kosher for the kiyar, you're creating a problem, because the kiyar, if it needs mayim chayim, right, then it would not be comparable to a mikvah, because a mikvah does not need mayim chayim. Okay, remember, you mean to say the loy mayim chayim ninu, that the kiyar does not need mayim chayim? That's what you're telling me. We know a mikvah doesn't need mayim chayim, but you're telling me the water of a mikvah is good for the kiyar. That means that you're telling me you do not need mayim chayim. You do not need mayim chayim. What by a kiyar? That's what you're telling me. Says the Gemara. Vatanya, the pasuk says the pasuk. Va'kerev v'kra'ayim. This is speaking about the carbon oila. Va'kerev v'kra'ayim yirchatz b'moyim. You should wash in water. V'hikr v'koyin esakol. So now it says the innards you should go ahead and wash in water. The innards you should wash in water. So it says b'mayim. We're speaking about washing the innards of the carbon. B'mayim v'loy b'yayin. B'mayim v'loy b'mazug. It can't be diluted. B'mayim, the rabbis shar mayim, right? The rabbis, this comes to include all types of water, right? Even water that is not mayim chayim. Shar mayim, Rashi says, afilu mechunasam, even water that is gathered, even water that's gathered. The kal v'chomer lemei kiyar. The kal v'chomer lemei kiyar. Now, guys, so let's look at me. You're telling me when it says b'mayim washing the innards, washing everything, it has to be b'mayim. Even mayim that what is mechunasim. The kal v'chomer, the water of the kiyar could be used. And what's the kal v'chomer? It must be that the kiyar is mayim chayim. In other words, if I could use mechunasim to wash, kal v'chomer, I could use meikiyar. So obviously meikiyar must be what? Mayim chayim, which lends itself to a problem. How can then you tell me that the water of the mikvah could be used for the kiyar? Again, you're telling me that the water of the mikvah could be used for the kiyar. But 1 second, I have a limud that the kiyar has to be from a well. It has to be from mayim chayim. It can't be from water that was mechud. It has to be from a fountain. It has to be from something that flows. Now, where do you get that from? You get it from the limud of b'mayim. You're washing the carbon oil's innards. B'mayim, can't be yayin. It can't be diluted. It has to be. It could be water that's gathered. The kal v'chomer, it could be water of the kiyar. What does it mean? What's the kal v'chomer? Says the Gemara. My kal v'chomer l'mei kiyar lav de mayim chayim ninu. Is it not that it's mayim chayim? It must be that it's mayim chayim. So now you have a problem. How could you go ahead? And Rabbi Yirmiyah said in Teresh Lakish that may mikvah is kasha for the kiyar. Either kiyar needs mayim chayim based upon this limud. Says Merloi, it doesn't mean mayim chayim, it means the kaddish. It knows madach, water of a mikvah, which is not kaddish, could be used to go ahead and wash the innards. Kal v'chomer, the water of the kiyar, not that it's mayim chayim. Kal v'chomer, that it's kaddish, could be used for washing the kiyar. The kal v'chomer is that it's kaddish, not the kal v'chomer that it's mayim chayim. Kal v'chomer that it's kaddish. Fred the Gemara, right? Fred the Gemara. The kiddush ma'al yasehi, is kiddush such a good thing, right? Is kiddush such a good thing, right? What's the maila? V'tana Rabbi Shmuel, mayim she'ein lohem shem levaya. In order to go ahead and wash, it has to be mayim that does not have a shem levaya. It does not have a surname. So look at Rashi, guys. Look at the last Rashi on the page. V'tana Rabbi Shmuel, lo yadana ahecha koi. I don't know what's going on. Umiyu shamina. Nonetheless, we hear from here the heichad ksiv mayim stoma Ein Mekia Ksherin Loi, where it says Mayim Stam, that it's not kosher. Now, when Rashi says over here, I don't know what's going on, it doesn't mean I don't know what's going on washing the. I know the discussion of the Gemara is going on the Gemara discussion of the Gemara is going on the washing of the innards. I don't know which mayim he's talking about. That's what he means. I don't know which mayim he's talking about. Look at the Taisus, guys. Last Taisus. But Tan Rabbi Shmuel, Pirish Bekuntris, Lo Yodana Hechakai, Umiu B'Taris Kahanim Tanya, Va'aker V'Karayim Yirchatz B'Mayim, V'Loi B'Yayin, V'Loi B'Mozid B'Mayim, L'Rabbi Shar Mayim. Yachal Shani Marba Afmi Meitutin, even strawberries, water of strawberries, Talmud Leimer, Mayim, Mayim Shem Shem Levaya, it doesn't have a surname. You write Yatsu Meitutim, this would exclude Meitutim, that what Sheyesh Lem Shem Levaya. It has Shem Levaya Tutim. So we want to say that when it says Mayim, that it should not be kosher because it's Meikir. It's called Meikir. Okay, Amid Beis. Yatsu Meikir, Sheish Lem Shem Levaya. Right? So the Kal V'Chaymer can't be that it's Kaddish. It's no Maila. You won't be able to use Meikir. Ella, it doesn't mean what? It doesn't mean Meikir. Ella lav de Ru'uyin leMeikir. Does it not mean that's roy to make kiyar alma mayachayim ninu? It's mashma that what? It's mayim chayim. In other words, if it's not kiddush, guys, what is it? Guys, look at me, guys, look at me. You started off and you said the following. That when it comes to washing the innards, you can use water that is shar mayim, meaning water that's gathered. Kal v'chomer, you can use make kiyar. So you see that make kiyar what is mayim chayim. If it's mayim chayim, then I can't use may mikvah for it. And for the Gemara, no. You know what it means? It means kal v'chomer that what? That water that's kaddish. Kal v'chomer water that's kaddish. What? For anyone who considers Milo water that's kaddish. You see, you can't use meikir to wash the innards. You can't use it. Why? Because it's got a surname. So you see that kedusha is not a mila. So mela, if kedusha is not a mila, let's go back to kal v'chomer. And therefore, you see that what you do need mayim chayim, which is then it's a kasha on Reish Lakish that says 1 second that may mikvah you could use for what for so it's a kasha on Reish Lakish. How can you Reish Lakish say that may mikvah could be used for the kiyar? The kiyar has to be mayim chayim, right? So it says Gemara Tanoihi. In fact, it's a machlokes Tanoim. Dam Rabbi Yochanan may kiyar Rabbi Shmuel Oimer may ma'ayin. It has to be what mayim chayim. It has to be from a well. Shar it could be from anything else, and therefore what Reish Lakish said is din, guys. Reish Lakish said is din what according to the Chachamim, like the Chachamim that mei kiyar could be from regular water, guys. So what I could use the water of a mikvah for the kiyar, like the Chachamim. Einochinami lo Rabbi Shmuel, you can't. Like the Chachamim, you could. Oral, we said if he does the avoid, it's puzzle. Guys, we have a machlokes in Shas. I mention it all the time between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. Exactly what an oral is. The first time you get to it is in Masechta Yavamis, the famous Mishnah there. Here it's said very briefly. Rashi says an oral is what? Now, an oral is somebody we learned earlier. Go take a look. Rashi in the Mishnah, guys. Get back to the Mishnah. Tesvav Amid Aleph. Amid Beis. Tesvav Amid Beis. Tesvav Amid Beis. Oral, says Rashi, Koyen Shemesa Ochiv Machmas Mila. What's an oral? An oral is of his brothers. What's it called? A hemophiliac. Is that the word? When they bleed to death, they don't clot. Hemophilia. So you had two brothers that were hemophiliacs. After the Mila, they bled out and died. So we're chayish, guys, by chazaka, we're chayish the third time. And therefore, he didn't undergo a Mila. That's Rashi's Shita. He didn't, he's called an Aral. Even though he's an Anus, he's called an Aral. It's not his fault. Okay. Let's see Taisus by us. This is a very good machlokes to know. Aral, Mefarish Rabbeinu Shloima, Rashi, B'chol Makoim, every place, Shemesu Achim Machmas Mila. For Rabbeinu Tam, Mefarish, the Mutta La Arlois. The mumar la'arlois. He's a mumar la'arlois. He's a mumar. He can't do it. V'kari le'libay l'shemayim. Lefisha eina oisa ella midaiga sara mila ubreish mila ola parashti. This is the person who's scared, guys. He's scared, pashit, physically scared to go through it. That's an oral. Listen to this nafkamina, guys. It's crazy. Light Rabbeinu Tam, you can have an oral, you can have a person who's not an oral, but it's not circumcised. Firas Rabbeinu Tam, your brothers died machmas mila. You don't have to do it. You're not an oral. You're an honest. Physically, you have an oral. But you das heißt this kind oral. You're not an oral like Rabbeinu Tam. It's geschmack as anything. You would be able to do the avoida. If you did the avoida, it would be kasha. Everything. You'll be able to eat from the Korban Pesach. Like Rashi is a big chumrah. Like Rashi, it's not my fault. It doesn't make a difference. If physically you have an oral, you are an oral. Says Rabbeinu Tam, Nain. Says Rabbeinu Tam, you can have an oral, you can have a foreskin, and nonetheless be a total muksha. That's nafkamina between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. Tremendous nafkamina. It's unbelievable. But you should be. I'm stressing it now. You should have it now. You have it. It's you got it. There it is. Good. Oral minalan. How do you know an oral? So Rav Kista, Dabazemi Taras Moshe Rabbeinu loy lamadnu, Midivri Yecheskel ben Buzi lamadnu. We bring this in all the time. Like, so until Yecheskel you didn't know it, and the answer is we knew it, but Yecheskel was the smachta ba'alma. We bring this all the time. Okay, why does the pasuk say? Koyamar Hashem Elokim, Kol ben Nechar oral leiv, v'oral basa loyava yal mikdashi, l'chol ben Nechar asher besoich b'nei Yisrael. That's what he says, and then it says so therefore, Kol ben Nechar oral leiv, oral basa, loyava el mikdashi. Okay, so any person who's a ben nechar, he makes himself like a fremda. He makes himself like he's in dead nechar. Oral leiv, for oral basa, loyava el mikdashi. He shouldn't come in and do the avoida. An oral can't do the avoida. Uminolan de machli avoida. And how do you know if he does do avoida? It's takawad. It's taka mecholo. It's not good. The chsiv. The pasuk says, "Haviachem b'nei nechor arle leiv v'arle basa liyos b'mikdashi lechalalo is basi." Lashon lechalalo is used, right? Liyos b'mikdashi lechalalo is basi. So you see that one in oral. Okay. Tan Rabbanon ben nechor. What's a ben nechor? Yachol ben nechor mamish a goy. Ben nechor usually means a goy. Talmud loymar oral leiv. That's a person who makes himself a ben nechor. As Keddy would say, sein Herz ist verstopft. Right? He's an oral leiv. He makes himself what? He makes himself like he's a ben necha, like he doesn't know God. Right? And Kei matam aloim ben necha, shenisnachu myself lovim shev shemayim. Shenisnachu, he makes himself, he's a yid, but he makes himself like what? Like totally distant from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Vein li oral leiv, oral basa minayin, tam aloim av oral basa. But tzrich you need to tell me both. The kasvach mana oral basa mishum demayis. It's mias. Therefore, he's mechal de avoda. Av oral leiv loy mayis, but a person's oral leiv, I'd say not. Ein beloy viash mina oral leiv mishum dein leiv l'shemayim, because his leiv is not l'shemayim or less leiv. Av oral basa the leiv l'shemayim, the libo is l'shemayim ein beloy. I'd say what it's not mechal. So it's really tell me it is. Now the next piece of Gemara extends in so I think it doesn't pay to start because I'm going to have to go over it again. But I want to wish again everyone a great Yontif, and